Hi guys, this is Emma at the Vlog Lady, and today I'm going to be talking about some theories and thoughts I've had since the last episode of Twin Peaks Part 7. I specifically want to talk about Evil Coop and the possibility that Evil Coop had sexually assaulted Diane, Audrey, possibly Annie even. And I want to talk about the possibility as well of Richard Horne being Audrey's son. Also talk about who Linda might be. So first of all, I want to go back to the first scene we see in Twin Peaks, which shows the giant talking to Cooper. Now I assume that this is the good Coop because his demeanor is open, he's questioning, he's calm, he's bright. He isn't displaying any typical behavior that we've seen from the doppelganger when inside the lodge in previous episodes. It is unknown whether this scene takes place before the Dougie stuff or later on in the show, whether we're going to return to that scene. I think the latter, and I think that is going to be a pivotal moment when Dale regains his senses and then he's sent on his journey to put things right, and putting things right involves something to do with Richard and Linda. Now the giant said 2 birds with 1 stone in regards to Richard and Linda. Now that's an interesting expression because note he didn't say the word kill, which we commonly use when saying that expression. Why did the giant say that? Is it just because he didn't want to invoke the idea of killing when he was inside the lodge? Because the giant is associated mostly with helping Dale, so perhaps to use the word kill was unacceptable to him. Or perhaps it means something else. Perhaps the giant didn't mean kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Perhaps he meant something entirely different, such as save 2 birds with 1 stone or help 2 birds with 1 stone. I don't know, but I thought it was significant that he did not use the word kill. He left that out of the sentence. Also, I think that we can analyze that sentence. Maybe this is a little over analyzing it, but birds are used in that sentence. Now if we think about where birds are important in Twin Peaks, we have the owls. The owls are used as hosts for the parasitic entities, so perhaps Giant was saying that Richard and Linda are associated with the parasitic entities of the lodge. And then we go on to with 1 stone. Could the stone be the stone in the owl cave ring? Could it be something else? Could it be the stone that Dougie was turned into? I don't know, I just think that it's interesting possibilities here. And I think that scene is very important in the fact that we're now seeing someone who could be the Richard that is mentioned, and we've also had a mention of Linda. I think it's building up to something very important. Now, who are Richard and Linda? I think they're making it clear that Richard and Linda are actually the Richard and Linda that we've heard about so far, so Richard would be Richard Horne. In the last episode there was the implication that Evil Coop could have visited Audrey in the hospital and sexually assaulted her. Some of you in the comments on my last video suggested that Evil Coop might not have been doing that. He might have just been going to get the ring, the Owl Cave ring, from Annie, who was recovering in hospital. And that is entirely plausible. But in this particular instance, because I'm thinking about Richard Horne and the possibility of him being Audrey's son, then I'm going to assume for this theory that Evil Coop did assault Audrey. She became pregnant while in a comatose state, and Richard was the product of Evil Coop and Audrey. First of all, I want to know why Evil Coop would have attacked Audrey whilst she was incapacitated. So Good Coop was clearly physically attracted to Audrey, but their relationship was pure and chaste. He respected the fact that she was too young and too naive and too inexperienced for him. However, if we're to consider that the Evil Coop was opposite everything connected to the Good Coop, then I can assume that his feelings towards Audrey would be something like depraved lust. So the question is, why would he impregnate Audrey, specifically if she was incapacitated as well? And I was wondering if it had anything to do with the Horne family being so powerful in Twin Peaks. The Horne family are one of the richest in Twin Peaks. They're also one of the most powerful, and if a young man was to be born into that family, they could be privileged, they could have a lot of influence, not just in Twin Peaks, but possibly in the far-reaching community. That could have been the reason why Evil Coop targeted Audrey, or it could be something else. We know that in the last episode there was something weird going on with the Great Northern. It was humming. I don't know if there is something about the Great Northern's positioning that makes it special. We've seen several visitations from the giant, from the little man, from Bob. We also saw Josie turn into a doorknob. What is special about the Great Northern is drawing this kind of power to it. I think there is a possibility that it could be positioned on the White Lodge opening. So I think Evil Coop could have realized that being a member of the Horn family would benefit his progeny very much, and that's why he targeted Audrey. Possibly the presence of someone like Richard, if he grew up in the Great Northern Hotel, close to the White Lodge entrance, if that's what the Great Northern is, then that could negate the good powers, perhaps. I'm not sure, but just throwing some ideas out there. Now let's talk about Diane. There was also an implication that Evil Coop had attacked Diane. Now I know that some of you in the comments in my last video disagreed with this, and they thought that possibly Diane had met the good Coop and she was angry because he had left her in some way, or he had abandoned their relationship. So Dale recorded a tape to Diane in the episode Miss Twin Peaks, episode 21 of season 2, and he introduced her to Annie Blackburn, saying that she was the most original person that he'd met for a long time or something like that, and that she had the purity of a child, and that he hadn't felt that way about a woman since he was with Caroline. So I assume that whatever relationship Dale had with Diane was still friendship at that point. Possibly they were very, very close friends, and they'd been work colleagues for a very long time, and they were partners in a way that probably was more intense than just a working relationship. But for Diane to be this upset in the last episode, there doesn't seem to be anything that points at that. If we look at her relationship with Dale in the original series, Dale was communicating with her all the time during that series. He was open about his love life with her. It didn't appear that there was any kind of difficulties between the two of them in regards to the stuff that Dale was saying on the tapes. Now, I haven't gone deeper into this and looked at anything outside of the original series or the current series, so I haven't read like the autobiography of Dale Cooper yet, so there may be other information there, but as far as I know, Diane and Coop had a good relationship right until the end of the original series, and after that, of course, Evil Coop got out of the lodge. So I'm assuming that Diane did meet the Evil Coop at her flat, at her apartment, wherever, and he possibly again was attempting to be the progenitor of evil in the world by raping Diane and hoping that she would be pregnant with his evil spawn. I think from Diane's response to seeing Coop and to discussing Coop with Gordon and Albert that something terrible happened to her, and I'm guessing it was easy for her to fall in love with Dale Cooper, the good Coop, because of how intimate he was on these tapes with her. He said a lot of things that were so personal to him, told her a lot about himself, things that he didn't necessarily need to say when in a working relationship with someone. So it was almost like Diane was Dale's personal diary, except she was hearing all of this. Anyway, let's go back to Richard and Linda. Now, we've heard of a Linda. I think the man who got in the car with Carl Rod, he talked about a Linda who is disabled in some way. She has an electric wheelchair, I think. A lot of people making the association between Linda and her wheelchair and the fact that one of the upcoming episodes is called This Is the Chair. I do think we might be meeting Linda in that episode. So if we're to assume that Richard could be Audrey's son, then who is Linda and why is she important? And I think that there could be a possibility that Linda is also the daughter of Evil Coop with another woman, or possibly Richard and Linda are twins. To me, Linda did sound like a slightly older woman, just from the way that this guy was talking about her, but perhaps she could just be the same age as Richard. Certainly Linda didn't sound as if she was a threat to anybody, unlike Richard. But I was thinking, what if they are twins, and actually they are twins because of the fact that one of them is good, one of them is bad? Is that a stretch? Yes, maybe, but we don't know what the consequences of a doppelganger procreating with a normal human being would be. We haven't seen Audrey yet. There seems to be a big build up to seeing Audrey. Everybody loves Audrey, I think. There's not many fans who dislike Audrey, and I think we're all keen to see her. And the fact that they are holding back her appearance like this suggests to me that possibly we are leading up to a big reveal. Possibly Audrey is dead. I think if Richard is her son, then there is even the possibility that she died in childbirth while giving birth to some kind of evil entity, because of the fact that something so evil could definitely have harmed Audrey, could definitely have hurt her in a way that she could not recover from. There is also the question of Annie, who was in the hospital at the same time as Audrey. Evil Coop could easily have also attacked her. A lot of people have different views on where Annie is. Some people saying that she is dead, some people saying that they think that she is just under the radar and that Frank wouldn't have known her because of the fact that she was a bit younger than Norma. I don't know. I just thought that the way Hawke spoke about Annie when they were talking about the diary pages that they'd found, it suggested that nobody really knew her very well, and that they hadn't known her for a long time, that she certainly hadn't been in the town, that she certainly hadn't been around in a long time. So perhaps she did just decide to leave town after that. Perhaps she was left in that traumatized state forever. Perhaps she was taken away to some institution. The possibilities are endless, I think, but I think that they have to mention Annie after this because of the fact that she is such a significant part of that scene and that storyline now. Incidentally, a lot of people are noticing there was some inconsistencies with the diary pages because of the fact that Laura had found the diary pages ripped out before she had the dream of Annie. They may have simply made an error in regards to the timeline there. I certainly wouldn't have noticed that if nobody had have pointed that out to me, but I know that some super fans know this timeline off by heart. But I guess maybe the possibility exists that Laura had the dream about Annie, went back to Harold's house, wrote some more in the diary, then Leland/Bob went to Harold's place, ripped the diary again, and then he was in possession of the pages. So there was one thing more I wanted to discuss, and that was the last scene in the last episode where they are in the diner and Sleepwalker's playing. Now a lot of people noticed, I didn't notice when I first watched, but in that scene there is a very quick and subtle change of customers. Whilst the guy comes in looking for Bing, blink and you miss it, but Shelley seems to notice. She seems a little bit confused, and I'm wondering whether that means anything more than whether it was just a continuity error, and whether it was Mark Frost and David Lynch saying, look, we can change things if we like. Things don't have to stay the same. This is just a fictional story, and if we change details like we did with the diary pages, then you're just going to have to accept it. Or perhaps it's something more than that. Perhaps it's kind of a glitching of time. And maybe this would make sense in terms of if the doppelganger is out of the lodge and he's not supposed to be out of the lodge, then perhaps the actual time frame as we know it flickers back and forward or something like that. You know, we know time works differently in the lodges. This strange warping of time is occurring because of Evil Coop not being where he's supposed to be. So that's all I'm going to talk about today, but if you have any thoughts about anything I've said, please leave them in the comments below, and thank you very much for all of your comments thoughts and theories that you've been posting on the videos. Sorry if I don't reply to every comment. I'm loving that we all have very different ideas on what is happening in the show. I think it's great that we're all on our own journeys on this, but I love that we can all come together and throw ideas out there. So if you do have any thoughts and you want to share them, you're very welcome to leave your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and you can subscribe to my channel if you like Twin Peaks, David Lynch, and you can follow me on Twitter and Facebook at The Vlog Lady as well. And that's it. Bye!